Passover itself is a special meal that already has a ton of significance, and it's all symbolic. So it was called Passover because it was about, that symbolized the angel passing over so they would escape from judgment. They would eat unleavened bread because that symbolized the haste with which the Israelites had to flee Egypt. They had to leave in haste, and they didn't have time to leaven the bread. And the bitter herbs, they would eat bitter herbs at the meal too, and that represented the bitterness, the taste of the bitter herbs, the bitterness of bondage that they experienced under the Egyptians to remember what God had brought them out of. The lamb represented a sacrificial substitute that they weren't like making. There was no actual angel to pass over them year by year. This was just in commemoration of a previous suffering lamb. So the Jewish context, I think, means that Jesus is speaking symbolism. He's offering them a new Passover meal, new meaning to an old Passover meal. The bread is Jesus' body, the wine is his blood. He's giving them a new covenant. He's showing that he's bringing out a new people through his blood, and there's a new commemoration of that, just like Passover was the commemoration of the founding of the nation of Israel. There's no doctrine in Judaism that the lamb offered becomes the literal flesh of lambs from the first Passover. Like, there's no doctrine that says this. There's no transubstantiation in Passover in the Jewish context. So when Jesus says, "This is my body," it's in a feast that's steeped in symbolism. Symbolism is the context through which he gives it. So here's more, if I can add more to, I think there's a pretty strong argument actually against the Roman Catholic view here. Another thought is, why didn't the disciples put up a fight? Like, why didn't they even ask, like, hey, Jesus, eating physical flesh is definitely against Torah. Like, are you sure you want me to do this? And you're like, well, they wouldn't do that because they trusted God. Yeah, but look at the same guy, Peter, who's there at the meal, when he has the vision, just a vision. It's a vision. It's not even like real. He has a vision of the coming down of all these different unclean animals. And God says, kill and eat. And Peter says to God, like, no, Lord, I've never eaten anything unclean. And yet this to them would at least strike that same kind of note and cause them to probably say, wait, Jesus, what do you mean? This is your body? Like, literally? This is your body, not literally? So I don't think they're thinking transubstantiation because they didn't put up a fight. They saw it as symbolic because it's connected to a meal full of symbolism. And it brings up other problems, like consuming Jesus at the Passover before his sacrifice even took place. Like, they're consuming the flesh of Christ. He hasn't even been sacrificed yet. So I think that should answer that question, I hope. Yeah.
Now you might ask, well, okay, how do we receive Jesus' blood then? Great question. Let's check it out. Romans chapter 3, verse 23, it says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God and are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood." Through faith in his blood. He did this to demonstrate his justice because in his forbearance he had left the sins committed beforehand unpunished. He did it to demonstrate his justice at the present time, so as to be just and the one who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. Where then is boasting? It is excluded. On what principle? On that of observing the law? No, but on that of faith. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from observing the law. Is God the God of Jews only? Is he not God of the Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too. Since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that same faith. Do we nullify the law by this faith? Not at all. Rather, we uphold the law. So God says, verse 28, God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood. We receive that atonement. It's through faith.